Yeah, Hawa. Hey, what's up, everybody? How you guys doing? Hope you guys having a good day today. Thanks for tuning in. All right, just wanted to go over some information here and actually get to read some of this book that I have here, Jews and Muslims, British Colonial America. I think it's a very good book, a lot of good info to read. I mean, the whole book, man, is pretty good. So just thought I would go ahead and read this out to you. But before that, I wanted to also do a little recap of what we've gone over, some of the info, not everything, regarding the what we call a Sephardic Huguenot diaspora, the Sephardic Morano crypto-diaspora, and their influence in Europe before they got to Colonial America and in Colonial America. What does that have to do with you? You know, what does that have to do with you? All right, so I hope you guys enjoy this. Go ahead. Much love and respect to everybody in the chat, everybody who's tuned in. You know, I just hope, you know, we don't get no static today. We don't get shut down, but hopefully we don't. All right. So before, I mean, part 4 of my series, Nations of the World, go over a little bit of the background of what a Sephardic Jew, most likely in those times, you know, was described as, and who he really was. We can't think about as like in the same as an Israeli. It's not the same. So I'll just go over this info real quick, like it's the first time. So before we get into the information we're gonna read today, and it says here, it's called "The Jewish Blackness Thesis Revisited." This is from Ron HaKohen from the Department of Literature, Tel Aviv University. This is from 2018. It says here, the abstract: the notion that in previous centuries Jews were considered to be black or seen as blacks has gained broad acceptance in scholarly discourse on the Jewish body since the early 1990s. The present article considers the notion analytically and then examines some of the evidence provided to support it. Much of this evidence does not stand critical examination. Therefore, arguably, the notion of Jewish blackness should be reconsidered. The notion of the blackness of the Jews or Jewish blackness has become commonplace in scholarly discourse, going back to the path-breaking work of Sandler L. Gilman in the late 1980s. Scholars often assert that a strong European tradition, dating back to the Middle Ages, maintained that the Jews were black, or at least Swarti, and finds sharp expression in modern anti-Semitic literature. All right, so black and Swarti synonymous. That in medieval literature, a theory prevailed in which the Jews were part of the black race, or were at least dark-skinned. This is from, and it tells you the sources here. Shavit 2001, page 182, or that the general look of the Jew was considered to be like that of the black. The initial formulation is the general consensus of the ethnological literature of the late 19th century was that the Jews were black, or at least Swarti, all right? That was the general consensus. They're letting you know here, all right? Remember that. Jews, what Jews? As the essay continues, however, both the weaker term Swarti and the inverted commas or scare quotes are dropped, and the term used is the blackness of the Jew, and not in a metaphoric sense. The Jews were quite literally seen as black. I'm going to read from this book right here real quick, just to corroborate. It says, The Natural History of Man, comprising inquiries into the modifying influence of physical and moral agencies of the different tribes of the human family, by James Cowles Pritchard. All right, and this is volume 1, all the way 1855, and it's about page 131 of this book, and it says here, the Jews have assimilated. All right, we're talking about the Jews, and they're talking about the Jews of Portugal. It says here, the Jews have assimilated in physical characters to the nations among whom they have long resided, though still to be recognized by some minute peculiarities of physiognomy In the northern countries of Europe, they are fair or sanctuous. Blue eyes and flaxen hair are seen in English Jews, and in some parts of Germany, the red beards of the Jews are very conspicuous. The Jews of Portugal are very dark. The Jews of Portugal are very dark. Again, the Jews of Portugal are very dark, right? We're going to be talking about the Spaniard and Sephardic Jews of Portugal, and how I'm going to, been letting you know, a lot of these became Huguenots. A lot of these ended up in Holland, the Netherlands, becoming known as Dutch and having influence in the West Indian Company and the trade around the world, the ships and everything, and pirates, merchants. Again, these same people we're talking about were very dark-skinned people, so-called Negroes. Now, further down in this book, I thought this was interesting, and it's talking about the Bedouins of Damascus over here, and it's talking how they got just here, right? So very dark in Portugal as well. It says Shakespeare and the Jews. This is the 20th anniversary edition from James Shapiro. All right, scholarly source here. You can dig on it. All right, and we're about on page 171 of this book. And it says here, the accumulated experience of over 100 years of travel, trade, and conquest had convinced Europeans that some of the accepted stereotypes of Jewish racial otherness, including the belief that the Jews were black, needed to be qualified when William Brereton jotted down his impressions of the Jews in the synagogue in Amsterdam in 1635. Amsterdam, again, that's in the Netherlands, Holland, all right? The Dutch, this is a Dutch synagogue, Dutch people, right? Amsterdam, 1635. He's going to let you know that he noted that the Jewish men are most black. They're most black. The Jews. Who was the Jews? Again, who was the Jews that were in Amsterdam? Most of those Jews, all right, had fled from Spain and Portugal. Sephardic Jews who were what? Most black. Remember, the Portuguese were very dark. We already read that. All right, you see the corroboration. And insatiably given unto women, drawing here on contemporary prejudices linking blackness and licentiousness. All right, so then he was talking a little bad about them and says, and when the Scottish minister Robert Kirk toured London in January 1690, he also paid a visit to the synagogue there. Now, this is a whole other different country. Right now, he's in England. Now, a whole different person, letting you know what he saw when he went in the synagogue, the Jewish synagogue in London, all right, in 1690. He observed over 200 Jews worshiping, 200, all right, 200 people, 200 Jews. He noted in his journal that they were all very black men. Again, Jews worshiping in a synagogue in London. They were what? All very black men. All very black men. Sephardic Jews. Who was in London as a Jew? A lot of these, again, were Sephardic, Moorish Jews from Portugal and Spain. A lot of these were Huguenots, so-called Huguenots, that were actually being able to practice their original religion, which was Jewish, right? Their Jewish religion, Sephardic. All right, so in Amsterdam, all right, we know that Amsterdam was a haven for the Sephardic Jews, a Protestant state, because a lot of these Sephardic Jews eventually were Protestants. That was their new Christian title, alias, so they wouldn't be Catholic. All right, so we're just going to continue real quick in this video. I'm going to read from this book also to corroborate what I'm letting you know, what the general consensus, right? Remember, he was telling us the general consensus during these times. All right, this book is called A System of Geography, or a descriptive, historical, and philosophical view of the several quarters of the world and of the various empires, kingdoms, and republics which they contain, particularly detailing those alterations which have been introduced at the recent revolutions. All right, and it keeps going. And I just wanted you to know this is from 1805. All right, 1805, and we're on page 49 of this book, and it's talking about the Portuguese and the Portuguese Jews and all that. It says the Jews, that singular people, have been called into the assistance of the advocates for the influence of climate. They are known never to intermarry with any but those of their own sect, and notwithstanding this, it is argued we find them in different parts of the world, of all colors. Jews, what? Jews of all colors. They come in every color. The English Jew is white. The Portuguese Jew is swarty, so-called black. The Portuguese Jew, swarty, very dark. Portuguese, again, another source. The American Jew, olive. And the Arabian Jew, copper-colored. All right, and remember, we just read, it's not because they mix with Africans. They're not copper-colored because they mix with Africans. The Jews say the opposers of this hypothesis undergo, under different degrees of heat, those changes which every man allows different degrees of heat invariably to produce. All right, so now they're going into the weather, but they're letting us know in this source from 1805. Portuguese Jews, swarty. Everybody else is very olive or copper-colored. It says here only the English Jew is white. That might be an Ashkenazi Jew, maybe not. Who knows? But again, they come in all colors, it says here. In Portuguese, swarty. All right, just wanted to show this book. It says the Blessed Jew of Morocco, or a blackamoor. A Jew of Morocco is a blackamoor made white, being a demonstration of the true Messiah of the law and prophets by Rabbi Samuel. All right, so just, I'm not reading, I don't have access, but I just want to show you. All right, this is from 1648, what they got in there translated. Writings from that time. Actually, they have writings from the 1400s to the 1700s in these volumes. All right. Again, the Blessed Jew of Morocco, or a blackamoor. Jew, Moor. All right, I'm going to read from this book real quick. It says Jews and Blacks in the Early Modern World by Jonathan Scorch. All right, Jews and Blacks. This is the cover. So on page 181, we start out with the same reference we read about earlier. Not all Jewish are blacks. It's vulgar to say that. Only the Portuguese are the ones, right? It says it here again. But down here it says, towards the latter end of the 18th century, one finds the same changeability of Jews expressed in updated nuances in geographic context. The Reverend Samuel Stanhope Smith wrote that the Jews are fair in Britain and Germany, brown in France. The Jews are what? They're brown skin. They're brown in France, French, Huguenots, and in Turkey, swarty in Portugal. So brown in France and Turkey, and swarty, or so-called black, in Portugal and Spain. They're black in Portugal and Spain. The Jews are black in Portugal and Spain, swarty, black. Olive in Syria and in Chaldea, tawny or copper-colored in Arabia and Egypt. All right, so different shades, all right, of complexion, the Jews. All right, again, another source here. Perhaps the best indication that the balances involved. So then, all right, so down here it quotes the book we just saw, The Blessed Jew of Morocco, or Blackamoor Made White. Now I want to go down to this part of the book. All right, so further down in this book, all right, I want to read this part. It says, while such views may be passed off as mere descriptive statements about the darkness of Sephardic Jews, the darkness of Sephardic Jews. Sephardic Jews are what? So-called black. They have dark skin. Remember that the Jews of Portugal and Spain, which are the Sephardic Jews, all right, are so-called black. We already got a lot of references, different books. They soon connected intimately with prescriptive notions based on the significance of physiological or racial characteristics. Thus, in 1750, petition from Kingston, Jamaica, Christians objecting to a recent attempt by Jewish landowner to vote, presented the following argument. It says, though a mulatto of the fourth descent may vote at elections, yet the Jews, many of whom are mulattoes of that degree, are by our wise legislation absolutely excluded from that privilege, it being expressly enacted that they, said mulattoes, should enjoy all the privileges. All right, so that's something that was being written in 1720 from Kingston, Jamaica about them. It says, note the lack of stability in the Jews' color and the overlap of cultural and physiological otherness. Many of the Jews were mulattoes of the fourth degree, that is, very light-skinned blacks. Jews, light-skinned blacks, and hence should have been permitted to vote. But Jews were not Christians. Unlike mulattoes, the religious exclusion of Jews put them on the level of mulattoes and blacks. Jews both were and were not blacks, were and were not whites. These various views of Jews branded them in David Rodiger's terminology as not yet white. The Jewish gaze outward ramified significantly on internal perceptions as well. The effort to clarify the blackness of Jews helped shape some seminal moments in the development of Jewish ethnography. All right, now I'm in the Jewish virtual library. All right, so I just wanted to go ahead and go over this info that we've gone over before. I'm going to go back in time a little bit. All right, we're going to go to the video I did, let me see, back in 2018. Columbus and his Negro friends, Marranos, Moors, Black Conquistadors, Canaanite, Moabite. Go ahead and get the full video, it's about 2 hours long. But we're going to go to this part of this book, Christopher Columbus and the Participation of the Jews. Back then, I didn't realize how deep it was, but there was a lot of drop, and let's go back over this. All right. Now we understand when they're talking about Jews and Hebrews, who they're, that they were Sephardic, Moorish Jews. Christopher Columbus and the Participation of the Jews in the Spanish and Portuguese Discoveries by Dr. M. Kaiser Lane. This was written in 1894. And we're in chapter 6 here. It says, after the Spanish monarchs had expelled all the Jews from all their kingdoms and lands in January, in that same month. All right, so again, let's not forget, we just went over the information when we're talking about Jews. We're talking about in Spain and Portugal, we're talking about Swarty, so-called black Jews, black people, so-called black, yeah. Dark complexion, I'm sure there was many shades of that, light skin to very dark skin. But we got the descriptions. There was a general consensus that these people were so-called Swarti, so-called black, mainly in Spain, the Iberian Sephardic Jews, and Muslim Moors. They commissioned me to undertake the voyage to India with a properly equipped fleet. So Columbus, this is from Columbus's words, stating in 1492, how at the same time that the Jews were being expelled from Spain and Portugal, that he was given the order or the permission, the authority, and the funding for his journey, right, to India, it says, right? India, why India? Because South America and the Americas, right, the farthest India was called India, or where the indigo people are, the dark-skinned people, indigenous people, right? So, Tuna says, these are the words with which Columbus begins his journal. All right. The expulsion of the Jews from Spain is closely connected with Columbus' expedition and with the discovery of America. All right, so it's very important what happened to the Jews in Spain and to the discovery of America. Okay, not merely externally in point of time, but also intrinsically. On March 31st, 1492, the Catholic monarch sent forth from the palace of the Alhambra the edict that all Jews and Jewesses of every age should, on pain of death, leave all the kingdoms and lands of Spain within 4 months. The edict, which was signed by Ferdinand and Isabella, is of a wholly religious character, especially as regards the chief reason given for that act. The reason given is that in spite of the incessant and most energetic efforts of the Inquisition, the Marranos were beguiled by those who adhered to Judaism to return to their old faith, and that this greatly imperiled the Catholic religion. All right, so there were, you see what's going on. I just wanted you have a reference of what was going on at the same time Columbus was leaving Europe, all right, and coming to America. All right, now with that reference, so let's read about Columbus' first voyage and who he was with. It says here, on August 2nd, the Spanish Jews began their wanderings, and the next day, Friday, August 3rd, Columbus with his fleet on 3 ships, the Santa Maria, the Pinta, and Nina, sailed to seek an ocean route to India, again India/America, and to discover a new world, or the real old world, which he knew about. He was accompanied on his first voyage by not more than 120 men, so 120 people went with Columbus on his first voyage. According to some writers, by only 90, according to other writers. Almost all Castilians and Aragonese, many of them were from Palos, and some from Guadalajara, Avila, Segovia, Cáceres, Castrojeris, Ledesma, Villar, and Talavera, all cities in which before the expulsion large of small Jewish communities existed. Right, so you hear all these people that are going to Columbus, most of them are basically Moranos, right, being expelled. Continuing, were there any persons of Jewish extraction on the Armada, which under Columbus' guidance steered its course towards a new world? It was not easy for him to find men willing to accompany him on his adventurous voyage. Even persons guilty of crime were released from prison on condition that they should enroll themselves among the recruits. Alright, so the kings and queens, they made a law because nobody wanted to go with Columbus, nobody wanted to do the trip, so they sent criminals. They let them go from, their prisons over there, so they sent criminals over with Columbus, right? Criminals, right? That's who they sent to you, to come over here and invade you and make you turn into Christianity, and they're prisoners, they're criminals. All right. What was to prevent Jews under the ban of expulsion, persecuted, and homeless from taking part in the voyage? Among the explorers' companions whose names have come down to us, the complete list is lost, according to them. Right? They don't want us to know who was there. There were several men of Jewish stock. For example, Luis de Torres, again, here we go. Luis de Torres, remember, he was the interpreter. It says a Jew who had occupied a position under the governor of Murcia and who was baptized shortly before Columbus sailed. Again, these are Sephardic Jews. I think I was muted earlier when I was talking. But again, these are Sephardic Jews. We just went over the information, talking about so-called black, Swarthy, Portuguese, Spanish Jews. A lot of these, again, are in the fleet that Columbus had, when he came to America, aka Columbus, right? If you look at the cover of this video, you'll see a little hidden name there on top of the person of the image. And that's why we're leaning towards actually the real name of Columbus, the real identity, a Portuguese Sephardic Jew. Right. So again, now we're talking about Luis de Torres. They brought in a Hebrew interpreter to speak to the Indians. He knew actually Arabic too and Chaldean, all these old world languages to come speak to the Indians. That's what they brought over here. As he understood Hebrew, Chaldee, and some Arabic, Columbus employed him as interpreter. Again, another source, as interpreter. So they knew they were going to the old world. So he brought this person, Luis de Torres, just in case, because he knew many languages, but especially Hebrew, because we'll see later that Columbus was looking for the Grand Khan, or the Prester John, right? And continuing a little ahead in this book, it says, and before that said, a body of men, Spaniards, Moors, and Jews, as well as Irishmen and Genoese, had covered more than 2,000 miles. The seamen began to murmur loudly at the intolerable length of the voyage. So it's stating here, who was with Columbus, again, Spaniards, Jews, and Moors, traveling with Columbus over to enslave you, to recover the Holy Land and Mount Zion, as Christopher Columbus stated in the Book of Prophecies he wrote, which is in the Columbina Library in Seville. Alright, so it continues, says, Columbus calmed them as well as he could. On October 11th, after the customary evening hymn, he admonished his crew to keep a sharp lookout for land In addition to the gratuity of 10,000 maravedis offered by the king, he promised a silk waistcoat to him who should first sight land. At last, early on Friday morning, October 12, D-Day, the day on which the Jews expelled from Spain and their co-religionists in every part of the world were singing their hosannas, the cry, tierra, tierra, land, land, arose from the All right, so again, very simple to research. There was a lot of these Sephardic Jews, Moorish, Muslims coming over after they were being exposed or expelled from Spain and Portugal with, these voyages, the Spaniards, Columbus, and all these voyages, Amerigo Vespucci and all these people. All right, so it says the history of the Jews in Latin America. All right, so that was just a little bit about of this video. Just going over to another video right here. First of all, we're gonna give a little shout out to the chat. Did actually sign happen? I don't know if we got disconnected. I see the chat. I saw my it said my chat got disconnected. Please wait while we try to reconnect you. So I hope nothing happened. We gotta dodge the hijack always, man. They're trying to bring that static, trying to disconnect me and all that always. Hopefully they don't do that. But again, shout out to the chat. Shout out to everybody that's tuned in. We're just gonna continue doing a little recap. I hope you guys understood. Columbus and these people. A lot of these were Sephardic Jews, so-called black people. These are black Spaniards. And we got to stop thinking like, oh, the Spaniards were all white and the Portuguese were all white. These were Sephardic and Moorish people mostly coming over here. All right. This is trying to make you understand that. All right. So these people had also a lot of descendants in Latin America and wherever they landed and everywhere they dealt with, even if they dealt with Indians, even in North America, Spaniards. So just think about that. Again, shout out to the chat. We're going to go into this other video I've done. I don't know what part of this, either part 5 or 6 of my series, Nations of the World. But we're just going to go to this part real quick. We have a chat, so I wanted to salute everybody in the chat. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being here and supporting. I hope you guys enjoy this. This is again part 7 of Nations of the World. If you haven't seen parts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the ones previous to this, go ahead and check that out. If you're new to this information, make sure you watch those parts. And if you are actually very new to all my videos, hey man, if you got the time, take 2 years, go back, catch up on the videos. It's been a great journey. We've been learning a lot. We're trying to correct history. We're trying to stop guessing, assuming, generalizing. We're trying to get factual here. All right. So I hope you guys enjoy this. Again, thank you for being here. Everybody in the chat, salute. Much love and respect. Pura vida. Hawa. And let's get on with the presentation. All right. Hawa. Yeah. All right. I got y'all. Yeah. Hawa. Much love y'all out there. We're gonna continue where we ain't done. Yeah, crypto. All right. So now I'm gonna read from this book. It's from the American Jewish Archives. Sephardim in the Americas. Martin A. Cohen. Cohen. Remember, John Calvin was a Cohen. It became Calvin, eventually Calvin, but it was a Cohen. Guest editor, it says. All right, this is the volume, the year, number 1. So the American Jewish Archive, a journal devoted to the preservation and study of the American Jewish experience. And it lists the people here: Jacob Rader Marcus, PhD, Abraham J. Peck, PhM, managing editor, Ruth L. Kramer, editorial associate, Tammy Topper, editorial assistant, published by the American Jewish Archives on the Cincinnati campus of the Hebrew Union College, Jewish Institute of Religion, Dr. Alfred Gottschalk, president. All right, so we're going to hear from the horse's mouth themselves. Introduction. Sephardim in the Americas. The year 1992 and the observance of the Columbus quincentenary mark a special moment in the history of the American Jewish experience. For a brief time, the historical spotlight will be able to shine on a group of American Jews whose ancestors left Spain at about the same time that Columbus undertook his journey of discovery. And while mainstream America will celebrate the 500th anniversary of Christopher Columbus' discovery of the New World, the same group of American Jews, the Sephardim, will shed tears for the nearly 200,000 Spanish Jews who were expelled in 1492 from a country in which they had lived for many centuries. And who are the Sephardim? Indeed, research in American Jewish history has shown that the first significant Jewish immigrants to this country and to this hemisphere were Jews from the West Indies and Europe, who traced their ancestry to the Jewish communities in Spain and Portugal. So in general, these are not Ashkenazic Jews, all right? Again, Sephardic Moorish Jews. The Sephardim, as they identified themselves according to their prayer ritual, dominated
Oh man, I was so muted. I gotta stop doing that. Man, guys, I'm sorry, man. I said so much good stuff. I'm just gonna recap. Basically, the point is very important. We're in colonial times, and you're doing your ancestry, and you start running into these names. They sound very Hebrew. First of all, fair use. This is a community we're learning. We love everybody. We're not here to like talk bad about anybody. So when we say the word Jew, we're talking about actual. It could be our ancestors. All right, we can talk about our family. It's okay. So fair use, and again, what I mean is very important because in your genealogy, you might run into a lot of these so-called Hebrew names, and a lot of these are not what you think of like in Israeli today. It's more like what it says here: people from the West Indies and Europe who trace their Jewish or ancestry to Spain and Portugal, and we already know what that means. Spain and Portugal, so swarthy. Can I get a so swarthy?
religious, social, and economic life of American Jewry during the colonial and early federal periods. By the 1830s, however, they were overwhelmed in numbers by a substantial immigration of Jews from German-speaking Central Europe. All right, so then the other Jews started coming in. These German Jews soon developed much of the institutional framework that would serve as the foundation for a future American Jewish community. The earlier Sephardic community soon became part of American Jewish myth, right? They don't exist. They were viewed as the grandees of American Jewish society, an aristocratic, acculturated group that has now all but vanished as a factor in the American Jewry of the 20th century. So you hear what's going on, right? So this is kind of like what we've been getting to, right? So, a lot of the people of color in the Americas, they descend from a lot of these Sephardic Jews and Moors, people of color, and they had to be crypto Jews, and a lot of time eventually they just anglicized their name and their lifestyle and their culture. They just like they're trying to say here, they vanished, right? So look how even in this academic journal, they're letting you know that these people kind of went underground, like the whole history, not just the people, but the whole history. They were here first. They were the ones colonizing. They were here first. Remember, the other people didn't come until after the 1830s. After the 1830s, we're talking about almost 200 years, right? 1600s, 1500s, right? 1490s, they were already coming with Columbus. Talking about a lot of years here that these people were the ones actually, like it was saying here,
Yep.
dominant, right? Just
That's a
dominant.
strong point I was trying to make. Think about that from the 1490s all the way up to like the 1830s. We got mostly people of color, especially coming from these areas of Spain, Portugal, or if they're carrying this cultural background as a Muslim or Sephardic Jew, Huguenot, wherever they were in Europe at the time when they were coming to America. All right, they're still people of color. And we're not just talking, we're specifically talking about them in this video, but these weren't the only people of color coming from Europe. We had German Palatines, we had, the original indigenous people of Scotland and Ireland and all these places and other places. So we're just, trying to have a historical background of these people that played an important role. Again, these were the merchants, let's not forget. They had we're going to see they were the port, they call the community the port Jews and all that. So that academic journal was going over again. That was a video um, that I did. I believe that was part 6. So I'm going to play another one real quick. And this is from the book. Let's see. The West Scotland was Jewish. Scotland was Jewish. Yes, that's the name. Right. And we're gonna get it like it's the first time. We're gonna just belly flop to this almost an hour and 20 minutes into the video. Scot-Irish Protestants. Again, this is from the book When Scotland Was Jewish. Very good book, and correlating everything we've been learning. So let's just get this like it's the first time.
Further on in this chapter, I skipped a lot. I just wanted to go ahead and read this part of the book because it correlates to what I've been saying so people can understand why I mentioned the Huguenots with the Sephardic Jews in my past video. It says all of these social roles, their private religious beliefs, must have influenced their discourse, actions, and counsel. Lavender, 2003, who recently uncovered the Sephardic ancestry behind his family's French Huguenot roots in Charleston, South Carolina. So, Sephardic ancestry behind French Huguenot, Sephardic ancestry behind his family's French Huguenot. Huguenots are Sephardic Moors, people of color in Charleston, South Carolina. Draws attention to the fact that the Huguenot seal of 1559 has the same 4 Kabbalistic Hebrew letters, the tetragrammaton, right, engraved upon it within a burning bush, no less, as we found in basalt on the title page of the Edward Ravon Psalter in Aberdeen in 1623. Many of the Huguenots were formerly Jews and Moors. Again, a whole different book. It's a whole different source, right? We're getting the same info that what? That many of the Huguenots were what? Formerly Jews and Moors. All right? Look at that and remember that. Put that in your mind. Many of the Huguenots were formerly Jews and Moors. And in France, the persecution of Jews and Huguenots went hand in hand. Again, what? In France, the persecution of Huguenots and Jews went hand in hand. Same thing going on with people like I told you guys in my last couple videos. They were being persecuted the same way. Everywhere they went, they were there, Protestant countries, all this. The history was all the same because it was all the same people. And that's what I was trying to show in my last videos. And this book put it all in one book. This research this person did in Scotland alone. She figured all this out. This her and the other person who wrote this. All right, correlating with all the information, all the research I've been doing and others in this community, and anybody else who has been studying this in the past, all the people before me. All right, this is what we're trying to show you, correcting history, try to show who these people are behind these tags, like Scottish, Irish. There's the Huguenot. There's a story to tell behind all this. All right, so this is the next part of what I'm going to read in this book, still in chapter 10, continuing. But before I read this part, we're going to get into John Calvin, as you see here. John Calvin, or Calvin, or Calvin, 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 Kawan, Cohen. All right. So before we get into John Calvin, just very important, in case somebody doesn't know who he is, I'm going to read about who he is real quick. All right. So we're in the Encyclopedia Britannica website.
John Calvin and the Calvinist movement and all that, Protestantism, and a lot of Huguenots were ex-Calvinists and also supported Calvinism. And so again, what we're going to basically show right here is that he was basically a crypto Jew. All right. So It says Huguenots were a religious group of French Protestants. This here, Huguenots were French Protestants who held to the Reformed or Calvinist tradition of Protestantism. All right, Calvinists. Who's Calvin? Calvin. All right.
This Calvinist, we're about to see who he really was. So who really was all these Calvinist followers, these Huguenots, right? These French, so-called French Protestants. All right, this is just a banner. Remember that. Now it's talking about John Calvin, or Calvin, 1509 and 1564. So who's this famous person? What's a Calvinist, right? What are the Huguenots? Calvinism, Calvinist, Protestant. Who started Protestantism? Who supposedly started the Huguenots? And what are their belief system? The Calvinism, right? Who is this John Calvin? It says here, John Jean Calvin was born in 1509 in Picardy, France. The family name was perhaps actually Calvin. John's father, Gerard, was employed as an attorney by the Lord of Nyon. Of John's youth, we know only that he served the noble family of de Montmort, de Montmort, de Montmort, and studied for the priesthood. In early adulthood, Calvin moved to Paris, where he became friends with two sons of the French king's physician, given their surname and their father's occupation. Nicholas and Michael Cobb were likely of crypto-Jewish descent. A little further down, it says at the time a war was in progress between Francis I and Charles V, so Calvin was forced to make his own way to Switzerland through Geneva. In Geneva, William Farel, bearing a Sephardic surname, Farel, founder of the Reformed Church in Geneva, convinced Calvin to stay and help preach the new Protestant theology. Calvin obliged and set up several Protestant religious schools in the city. So real quick, just wanted to bring you here now. I'm on Waikiki, I know Waikiki, but this is actually something you can actually research. So Cohen, it says here, right? Cohen. We don't know that's a Jewish name, usually given to the Levitical descendants of the Levi tribe, the Levitical priests of Aaron, the sons of Aaron, I guess, right? Cohen, surname. Now it says down here, French translation of Cohen gives Calvin, Calvin, as in John Calvin. John Calvin was a crypto Jew. All right, he was a crypto user, Sephardi person of color. This Calvinist founder, the ones who the Huguenots follow, right? He was a crypto
All
Jew.
right. Kurimeo letting you know. All right. So he's a Sephardi. What? Again, a person of color. John Calvin. Again, get that out of your mind. Break the spells. These are not just pale skinned white people like they wanted us to believe. You got to break the spells. All right. These are people of color. We've gone over, a lot of this information. Just real quick. I don't want nobody to get bored out here. All right. Hope you guys enjoying. Hope you guys can hear me still. Wow. All right. In search of the Black Dutch. Remember that video? And then we did a video of the Sephardic and their connection to the Turkish and Muslim and Celts and all this other Sumerians and all these other people who are the Sephardic Jews. Colonial soldiers of Virginia. Remember how they were describing them? Swarthy. Swarthy. You guys still there? Alexander Hamilton, who was also a crypto Jew, Huguenot. Crypto, he had both of them, crypto Jewish, Huguenot. Basically, it's all the same. And he was described as a Swarthy West Indian fellow. All right. And he had an aunt named Jemima. He had an aunt named Jemima. Jemima turned out to be a Hebrew name. Jemima is a Hebrew name. Can you guys hear me? Can I get a 1 if you guys are out there? Can I get a 1 if you guys are out there? All right. I'm hoping you guys can hear me. Wow. Wow. Well, I'm really hoping you guys can hear me. You guys still there in the chat? Let's go. What's going on? Still live? Yeah, we live, right? Yeah. Maybe my chat's not updating. Okay, here we go. That's what it was, you know. It wasn't updating on my end. I had to refresh the video. Sorry about that, guys. Let's continue. Thank you for responding.
All right, so now we're gonna get into this book. This book, you know, I ran into it in a footnote when I was doing my research, and I found it just from reading the cover alone. I'm like, wow, already correlating, you know, the research. So the book is called Jewish Pirates of the Caribbean. It says here how a generation of swashbuckling Jews carved out an empire in the New World in their quest for treasure, religious freedom, and revenge. Edward Kritzler. All right, so right away, what did I, take notice? I never knew that. First of all, pirates. Well, they never told pirates of being Jewish, right? But other than just Jewish, religious, right? We don't think of pirates as religious people, right? They never show us religious pirates or pirates who are fleeing or being persecuted for their religious belief. So pirates being persecuted, so they were religious freedom. All right, so right away we already know who we're talking about. Who was being persecuted, right? Sephardic Jews, Moorish Muslims, Moriscos, all these people from the Iberian, all these people for all these years in Europe being persecuted by the Catholic Empire and other powers, right? And they had to flee and be refugees in many different countries in Europe, eventually settling in and coming into the America as well for the same reason and just keeping it moving. All right, coming into their what they believed was a promised land over here for them, right? And a lot of them were the actual pirates. All these pirates, the movie Pirates of the Caribbean and all that, all these famous pirates, they said they're Portuguese, Spaniard, or whatever, Dutch. Who were these people really? Their genealogy. And I bet most of them, we have already read a couple of them already, but I bet most of them were, crypto Jews, crypto Muslims. All right, under the Dutch banner, under Portuguese banner, under Spanish banner, under Irish or English, So we're gonna get into this book, and the cover, just the cover alone, already explains a little bit. So I haven't actually read this book. I'm gonna read it with you guys. So I'm gonna read it for the first time as I record this with you guys. I read the cover and this preface here in the next part of the cover. All right, and that's all I read so far. So I want to read that to you too. And before we get started, so it says here, at the end of the 15th century, the Spanish Inquisition forced many Jews to flee the country. All right, we got that already, that background, that story, what happened, right, with the Jews. We're talking about Sephardic Jews. We're not talking about same as what we think of Jews today in Israel or Ashkenazi type or ancestry. These are little bit different type of Jews. Most of these Jews were very dark-skinned people of color, Moorish Jews, Sephardic Moorish Jews. All right, and it says here the most adventurous took to the seas in ships bearing names such as Prophet Samuel and Shield of Abraham, and attacked and plundered the Spanish fleet as they carved out an empire in the New World in their quest for treasure, religious freedom, and revenge. All right, Jews. Filled with high seas adventures, Jewish Pirates of the Caribbean is the thrilling story of a hidden chapter in Jewish history and of the cruelty, terror, and greed that flourished during the age of discovery. Here we meet daring and colorful figures such as the great Jewish pirate Sinan, who was Barbarossa's second in command, and Abraham Cohen Enriquez, an arms dealer who used his cunning and economic muscle to find safe havens for other Jews. All right, so they were helping each other. I remember they had this whole network in the Atlantic, right, with their families, these port Jews, all right, and these Moors and their ships, all these captains. They had the trade going since ancient times, and they did it and prospered during colonial times with the same trade they had going. It says also included are the encounters of these swashbuckling Jews with other legendary pirates such as Captain Morgan, and there are detailed portraits of cities stacked with high plunder, such as Port Royal, Jamaica. The Jewish pirates of the Caribbean captures a gritty and glorious era of history and recounts the lives and characters of those Sephardic Jews. Boom, there you go. Sephardic Jews in the early New World, who through guile, bravery, and intrigue persevered to gain the rights that Jews in the Western world enjoy today. All right, so we're talking about Sephardic Jews and Muslim Moors, a lot of those together. And remember, if you saw part 4, if you didn't, we've already gone over the background. What was the general consensus of Sephardic Jews, or Portuguese Jews or Spanish Jews, was that they were very dark skinned, very so-called black, yes. Continuing, it says here in the prologue, it says a puzzling entry in a pirate journal jumped out at me. Invading Jamaica in 1643, William Jackson found the island's capital deserted, except for diverse Portuguese of the Hebrew nation who came up onto us seeking asylum and promised to show us where the Spaniards hid their gold. All right, so you see what's going on? I had always learned that early New World adventure was the province of Spanish and Portuguese conquistadors, and that they were all devout Catholics carrying the cross. So what were Portuguese Jews doing on a Spanish island seeking asylum with an English pirate? All right, so you hear what his confusion is, because the general mainstream is that they had us generalizing that, the Spanish and Portuguese were all the same. These are all white, Europeans, Catholics. They brought Christianity. They're all the same. They don't want us to think of this diverse group of people living in the Iberian Peninsula, who were actually mainly Sephardic Jews and Moorish Muslims at that time. And the Catholic, they were Catholics, but they were invading. They had a war going on there for years. We already know that. All right, so he's like, so what's going on? Why is this Portuguese Jew, who's supposed to be Portuguese, why ain't he siding with his Portuguese Catholic people? Why is he actually beefing with them and actually seeking asylum with an English pirate? And again, an English pirate, this person might be English. They might, in this book, I don't know if they're going to say he's a white person or anything, but again, remember, these Sephardic Jews, these Moors, these Huguenots, they were traveling all over Europe and settling in places like England, Ireland, Holland, and becoming English, Irish, Dutch. So English pirate, that doesn't tell us anything. You got to know who you're talking about. Give us a name, and then let's check his genealogy to see if he's really English. All right. So it says it was 1967. I had moved to Jamaica from New York and came upon Jackson's journal in the reading room of Jamaica's National Library while perusing contemporary accounts of the island's buccaneer beginnings. I was more than intrigued. I wanted an answer. What I next learned was startling. All right, what he learned was startling. Before England conquered Jamaica in 1655, the island belonged to the family of Christopher Columbus, who provided a haven for Jews. All right, Jamaica was what? A haven for Sephardic Moorish Jews, people of color, European people of color. All right. The leader of the Jewish community, the late Sir Neville Asheheim, went even further, telling me that Columbus was a Jew and that Jamaica's Jews trace their ancestry to the first settlers. All right, Jamaica's Jews, they trace, all right, goes way back since colonial time. So again, we got another book, another person from another place telling us Columbus was a so-called Jew. All right, Sephardi Moorish Jew. Yeah, he was a person of color. Columbus was not his name. We're looking into that. We're digging into that. We set out a name in the last video. Check it out. We're digging on that right now. Very interesting research I'm doing, and we're gonna have a future video on that. But in the meantime, we're learning to get into the basics and the foundation of everything, right? So this person doing research in Jamaica, he's finding out like a whole crazy history here that he didn't even know existed. He, again, he might be thinking these are all light-skinned people, in his narrative, but we know better. We know how to dodge the hijack. So always dodge the hijack as I'm reading. Again, this is for the first time. So let's continue. It says, I was so begilded by these findings that I would spend the next 4 decades following their lead and unfolding an unknown chapter in Jewish history. Forget the merchants of Venice. His New World cousins were adventurers after my own heart. Jewish explorers, conquistadors, cowboys, and yes, pirates. Pirates. Again, all those tags right there, all those professions, all those.
All right. So again, that was my video, the Jewish Pirates of the Caribbean. I believe that's part 8 or 9 in my series, Nations of the World. Make sure to get the whole video. It's great information on that book. Make sure to watch that. So I think you guys got the idea of what we're talking about. When we get into this other book we're about to get into right now, again, Jews and Muslims in British Colonial America. Let me get the DJ. DJ, can I get some music? DJ, what's going on, DJ? Okay, thanks, DJ. All right. So again, Jews and Muslims. Hold on, let's share. All right. Oh, all right. Reflect. Let's reflect a little bit. Thanks for tuning in. All right. Shout out to YouTube Audio Library, Creative Commons, fair use. Thank you for the music. We enjoy it as content creators. Yeah, again, this is the book Jews and Muslims in British Colonial America. And I just thought, we should just read this whole book. Um, I wanted to do it in parts and do a lot of videos and edit and all that, but I think I just read it live to you guys, and very good information. That way we can break it down as we're reading it. No matter how long it might take us. And just beware, I might be reading about your family here. Your surname might come up in this book. You never know. I know a lot of people don't want to, acknowledge this part of their genealogy or heritage or lineage, but it's in there a lot, and a lot of people. I'm not saying everybody, but right. So we're in the preface of the book right here. All right. And it says, for most Americans, the story of their nation's origin seems safe, reliable, and comforting. We were taught from elementary school that the United States was created by a group of brave white Christians drawn largely from England who ventured to these shores in search of religious freedom and the opportunity to fulfill their own destiny. Recent revisions to this idealized and idyllic narrative have never seriously questioned its basic tenets. So although we now recognize some of the contributions made by Africans to America's success, dodge the hijack when they're talking about people of color, and feel perhaps a heightened sense of regret, remorse, and even guilt over the destruction of American native cultures, we never have had much reason to doubt the basic premise of the story. Our founding mothers and fathers were white, Christian, and British. So he's being very sarcastic, the author, right? He's being sarcastic. And thank you for tuning in. Thanks for the donations, everybody that's donating. I'm sorry I can't be in the chat while I'm reading, but thank you, appreciate it. All right, so again, this is what they were taught. This is what we were taught, right? That it was just some, British royal government coming over here, trying to colonize America, and Americans trying to free themselves and become independent and all that, right? So in this work, we present a series of colonial documents, contemporary first-hand accounts, records, right? First-hand accounts, that's primary sources, right? Colonial documents, we're talking about primary sources here. Records, historic ones, right? Portraits, family genealogy, that's blood, you can't deny that. Family genealogy and ethnic DNA test results, which fundamentally challenge, all right? So he pointed out ethnic DNA, not ancestry. So ethnic shows relation. Shows if you might have relation to some of these people, that would be an ethnic DNA test, I guess. All right. So results which fundamentally challenge the national storyline depicting America's first settlers as white. All right, they weren't white, British and Christian. All right, we postulate that many of the initial colonists were actually Sephardic, Jewish, and Muslim Moorish ancestry. Right, many men. Yeah, many. Trust me. Right, he's being modest. Hundreds of thousands of them. It's a complete lie. Right, beware they shut us down right now because they lied to us straight up. Right, usually arriving as crypto Jews with their religious adherents disguised and crypto Muslims. Crypto Jews and crypto Muslims. These immigrants served in prominent economic, political, financial, and social positions in all of the original colonies. All of the original colonies. The evidence in support of this radical new narrative begins with an examination of the British colonial companies organized in England to bring settlers to North America and exploit the natural riches believed to be there. All right, so they're talking about what they were doing to colonize, bringing these indentured servitude. They formalized companies, right? Virginia Company, the Plymouth Company, Summer Isles Company, Royal African, right? The Dutch West Indian Company. Dutch, who's the Dutch? Sephardic Jews. Who's the ones in the ships? Merchants. Who had the ports? All right. Once again, I'm gonna take a break real quick. When Scotland was Jewish, all right. Marranos in the New World. All right. This is from the book, The History of the Marranos. We went over this, and it's gonna tell us again who was the conquistadors, who's the Marranos and the crypto Muslims. All right, it says here Sephardic immigration into Dutch Republic, 1595, 1672. All right, this is from the Studia Rosentalia, volume 23. Very scholarly. Again, who was in the Dutch? Who were the Dutch? New Amsterdam, they called it. New Amsterdam, they called it Jerusalem, New Jerusalem. Amsterdam, New Jerusalem. All right. This is the black population of Bristol in the 18th century. We're going to get into this book. I'm just going to read a real quick. All right. Again, this is the cover. The black population of Bristol in the 18th century. All right. So a lot of these so-called black people in Bristol in England, a lot of them were Sephardic Jews and Moors, but a lot of them were just indigenous people from there. A lot of them were German Palatines. A lot of them were black Irish. A lot of them black Scottish. You know, a lot of different things, the black Danes, you know, a lot of different things. Right, this part right here, let me just zoom in real quick. I thought it was very interesting what it was saying. Thought you guys would like this. It says here, oh, where'd it go? Sorry, lost it. Okay, here it goes. There's it says, oops, why are they hating on me? Hold on. All right, here we go. There is no evidence that any significant number of Africans were brought to Bristol in the 16th and 17th centuries. All right. They're letting you know in this book that, yeah, there was a large so-called black population in Bristol and Liverpool, where supposedly these were large African slave ports, right, before they brought them to the U.S. So now, because now we're learning that a lot of these so-called slaves they were actually coming from England and Europe. So the narrative was, now they're changing it, that they brought them to England first, and then they brought them from there to America, right? But we know they never really went directly to America. There is no real things of talking about. But we know what ships were coming directly to America because they were coming from Europe, and we got the ship manifest. Again, there is no evidence that any significant number of Africans were brought to Bristol in the 16th and 17th century. That's not me saying it. It says one African serving, however, is recorded. They got one guy, he's African. He might be a North African, straight up. So they got one guy out of all this so-called black population. A witness in court of Star Chamber cause against Sir John of Bristol stated that he did appoint a black Moor to keep possession of his garden, presumably of his great house in what is now Colston Street. Right, so it keeps going. And I thought it was just really interesting because it gets really deep and how it, you know, the influence and how really big it was, this population in Bristol. All right, I have a whole book. I showed you guys in one of my videos. I have a whole book about the people that were getting sent to the plantations from Bristol, England. I got all the ship manifests. They were going straight to the plantations of Virginia, Barbados, Jamaica, St. Croix, Nevis, all these places. All right, from Bristol. So again, a lot of these people were not so-called white. In the West Indies and America, written records furnish documentary evidence for the arrival and sale of large number of so-called African slaves. The same cannot be said of Bristol. One of the most persistent stories associated with the slave trade in Bristol is that the shiploads of Africans were landed at the docks. So you see, they don't have no records of any Africans going to Bristol. So they can't explain. That's why Bristol had a so-called black population. They're letting you know in this book. Although we have no ships manifest, no bill of purchase or sale, no advertising, no contemporary accounts of such arrivals, the whole purpose of the triangular trade was to take goods from Bristol to Africa, slaves from Africa to the West Indies, and cargoes like sugar, not the other way around. It's basically saying, all right, it says the largest possible number of slaves to come into Bristol at one time may be indicated by the voyage to Jamaica. All right, so again, they don't have a record of this. They're trying to fit the narrative, the out of Africa theory. I just wanted, we're gonna get into all this whole book in another video. This right here says community of poor Jews and their context in the Dutch Atlantic world. All right. So again, we're just going over some information. It says in the late 16th century, Jews and conversos created a trading network that tied together ports in Portugal, Brazil, and Netherlands. This network became the chief Dutch commercial circuit in the first quarter of the 17th century and offered benefits to Jews and conversos. Remember what a converso was? That was a converso into Christianity or so-called Catholicism or just Christianity from Muslim or from Jewish heritage or faith that were not solely economic ones. This circuit made it possible for Brazilian new Christians just like crypto, so-called Marranos, so-called Moriscos, to return to Judaism in Amsterdam, and Amsterdam Jews to establish a community in Brazil. In the process, the poor Jews of Recife, Brazil, and Amsterdam became closely connected, especially after warfare closed off access to Portuguese ports in the network. Amsterdam Jews arrived in force in Recife during the 1630s, but traveled back to Amsterdam during the year 1645. Since the Dutch colony in Brazil was shrinking and eventually was captured by Portuguese troops, they mean Catholics. Jews contributed commercially, financially, militarily to this short-lived colony and were rewarded with privileges, which for this time were remarkable. They were very prosperous. They had all the sugar plantations. These poor Jews controlled the whole Atlantic. So I'm trying to show you guys. Let's hear those of the Hebrew nation, the Sephardic experience in colonial Latin America. The purpose of this paper is to provide a general history of a broad and complex subject, the Sephardic experience in colonial Latin America. This subject will be discussed as follows. First, within a historical overview, then geographically, according to areas with the largest Sephardic populations, such as Mexico, Peru, Brazil, Cartagena, Colombia. All right. Again, these are people of color, so-called black people. Yes. It's not talking about nobody with a tan. We're not talking about light skin. No, some of them were light skin, yeah. But we're talking about in general people of color. Again, these were Swarty. These were people considered so-called black Negro. They would call these people Negro. And they were calling them, a lot of them, Negro, depending on the title they had in status. All right. It says here, concerning terminology, Sephardic Jews in colonial Latin America are commonly referred to as New Christians or Crypto-Jews or Conversos. Since these terms are similar in meaning, they will be used interchangeably for the sake of variety, but the pejorative term Marranos will not be used. All right, so that was a bad, again, it meant pork eaters. All right, that's again another, I'm not reading this, I just want to show you guys crypto-Jewish identity in the Inquisition of Mexico City. Oh, who took over Tenochtitlan, Moctezuma? Yeah, it was people of color, more on more war, right? Crypto-Jewish identity and the Inquisition of Mexico City. Yes, crypto-Jews. Crypto-Jews. Inquisition, right? This is history. In search of the Black Dutch. Who's the Black Dutch? Let me see if we got a page in here, I think. So this is a book, actually, we did a part 9, I believe, in my video, Nations of the World. And it talks all about a lot, again, about the Dutch element. It says here, one of the more widely circulated explanations of a Black Dutch links them to a Sephardic Jews whose ancestors lived in Spain until their expulsion by the Spanish Inquisition in 1492. One source elaborates on the Sephardic Jewish theory by saying that they relocated to the Netherlands during the Middle Ages. Right? Black refers to the dark hair and in some cases slightly darker complexion, which was their Spanish heritage, it claimed. The Black Dutch eventually became Catholic in terms of religion and then Dutch reformed. It was these later generations, people who migrated to the West Indies and elsewhere later settled in America. All right, so that's somebody quoting somebody. Again, we already know the whole history. Because Raymond G. Matthews, U.S. Canon Reference Consultant at the Family History Library in Salt Lake City, Utah, discussing this claim in Dutch Family Heritage Society newsletter stated, if these people were Dutch, one would expect to find some reference to it in the records of New Netherland. He reported that Rabbi Malcolm H. Stem, fellow of the American Society of Genealogists and author of First American Jewish Families, in all of his years of experience has never come across the term Black Dutch. In fact, Matthews adds none of the surnames of these Jewish families in the Caribbean are at all like those that have been reported as being Black Dutch. Matthews concluded that it is doubtful that the Black Dutch were Jewish or Dutch heritage. All right, so they're doubting it. Of course, they're not going to put that claim on anybody. They don't want even to associate so-called Black with Jewish or anything like that, Dutch especially. All right, so these are just like theories on how the Black Dutch. So again, Sephardic, actually the genealogy is there, and Muslim Moors, all that, Indian people as well with the Black Dutch and a lot of the Melungeon tribal people. So here the secret Jews of the Southwest. Oh, the secret Jews of the Southwest. All right, so again, we're gonna actually emphasize a lot on this. All right, we haven't really done this part of Latin America and the Southwest, and then into Cali, the role they played, the Sephardic Jews and Muslim Moors, and founding and settling a lot of these towns in the Southwest and West Coast, Cali and all that. All right, in Mexico as well. It says here the secret society, descendants of crypto-Jews in San Antonio area. A secret society? Why is it secret? All right. Crypto-Jewish existence and influence in San Antonio. Okay. And this is the Jews of South Carolina. And again, it talks about the Sephardic Jews here. Were the first ones, not what we're thinking about as today. All right. And this book from 1905 letting us know the drop. Yeah, it's very heavy element of Jewish, so-called Jewish Sephardic Jews in South Carolina. So again, we're going to go back to the book we were reading, Jews and Muslims in British Colonial America, a genealogical history of, right? And this is by Elizabeth Hirschman and Donald Yates. Fair use. Now it says, of course, both Spain and France had already made forays in North America, found in St. Augustine, exploring parts of the coastline as far north as Newfoundland, though their activities as foreign powers are given short shrift in our Anglo-centric version of the birth of America. What is even less frequently mentioned regarding the Spanish and French settlements and voyages is that many of the colonists and sailors were Sephardic, Jewish, and Muslim Moorish descent, all right? That's why they left out of history. And then, you know, when I'm trying to explain this to people, but Kurimeo, you're talking about white people. What do you mean? Anglo, you know, what are you talking about? Spanish and French. So people automatically think when I say Spanish or French that means so-called white people. So again, you got to break the spells with that. You got to break the spells with that. Not, again, a lot of these people turned out to be what? Sephardic, Jewish, and Muslim Moorish descent. The genealogy says so. Several of those aboard Christopher Columbus' first voyage in 1492, and famously even Columbus Cologne himself was of Jewish ancestry. They were Jews or crypto-Jews. Again, we're getting it from all over the place. All right, can there be any doubt? What else are they hiding? Because Columbus, Christopher is a title. The Christopher is the Christ bearer. All right. We got his real name. Shout out to Top Cat for giving that presentation. Trying to do my own video on that, on Mr. Salvador Fernandez Arco. There you go, I said it. We on yo Arco. One historian on Inquisitional Spain and biographer of Christopher Columbus, Simon Wiesenthal, notes that throughout the 16th century, the movement of the Moranos to the New World had continued. and that after the expulsion of the Jews and flight of the Marrano element, it was the turn of the Moriscos to serve as scapegoats for the ills of society. The same writer estimates that all told, Spain lost 1.5 million people as a consequence of the purification of its population of Jews and Moors. Jews and Moors. Many occupations were virtually abandoned, he writes. Trade in the crafts, the sciences languished. Moreover, since these branches of endeavor had been the domain of Jews and Moriscos, they had become in themselves suspect. Spaniards had to be extremely careful about entering any of these fields. Spanish life as a whole was the worse for these injustices. Spain was swamped with fortunes, hunters from all parts of Europe, but they could not revive the Spanish economy. Just as the irrigation canals dug by the Moors, all right, the irrigation canals dug by the Moors in Andalusia, we're talking about in Spain, Andalusia, were allowed to still up. So the very channels on which the country's health depended fell into neglect. You see what happened when they kicked out the Jews and the Moors? Their health went into neglect. They couldn't keep up the sewers and none of that, the clean sewers and all that, the canals. We document that Spain's loss was Britain's gain, beginning with the initial planning, organization, and promotion of the first British colonial efforts. All right, listen to this. All right, they ended up in Britain, England, and all these places. They're going to talk about England right here. Sephardic Jews and Muslims, Moors, all right, Muslim Moors were present as navigators. They were the ship captains, all right? They were the sailors. They were the metallurgists, the ones who worked with metal, all right? Cartographers, the ones who made the maps and all that, right? We know this, right? We know Moorish history, right? Financiers, they had the money. The Jews and colonists, they were the colonists. They were the colonists. Who? Sephardic Jews and Muslim Moors. They were the colonists. All right? Yeah. Wow. Among these, we find Joaquim Gans, Simon Ferdinando, Walter Raleigh, John Hawkins. Oh, you thought these were just white people, huh? You thought these were just white people, these so-called enslavers and first colonists? You thought these were just white people, huh? No. Humphrey Gilbert, Richard Hakluyt. Do you understand who Richard Hakluyt is? Do you know about the Hakluyt Society and their collections? They got all these books. They collected all these Spaniard and Portuguese narratives and voyages, all these colonial voyages, these books that were handwritten by these people, first-hand accounts. Richard Hakluyt collected all these books in his family, called the Hakluyt Collection. Look it up. All right, you're gonna get good PDFs out of that. Trust me. And who else here? Francis Drake. Francis Drake. I traced somebody's genealogy in America to Francis Drake. Believe me or not. I don't need you to believe me. I know so. I know so. And the person whose genealogy I did knows so too. We got to the lady Elizabeth Drake. All of a sudden, guess who her dad was? Francis Drake. She was in North Carolina, I believe. North Carolina and South Carolina. It fit everything, the whole history. Fit really good together. When you do the genealogy, it all fits together. Martin Forbesner and Abraham Ortelius. The first and second British colonies in North America, Virginia and Massachusetts, were provisioned, funded, and peopled by persons of Sephardic, Jewish, and Muslim Moorish descent. All right? You're talking about Kurimeo, man. Now you're making everybody so-called black Kurimeo. I'm not the one who wrote this book. I'm not the one who wrote this book. Don't kill the messenger. I know a lot of people don't want to hear this, but I appreciate all those who like to hear this and like to learn and go with truth no matter what it is. Embrace all your lines, all your heritage, because they really lied to us. This is very important. You got two major genealogies. Not just one. You got two major genealogies in you. Possibly a third. Some of you. So again, what did it just tell us, man? We're talking about pilgrims. What are we talking about here? The British colonies, what? Virginia, North America, Massachusetts, all these companies. were provisioned what? They were funded by people of color, provisioned by so-called black people. I'm gonna just say it straight up. They were funded by black people. Can I say that? Can I say it? Does it hurt? Or sometimes, how does it feel when I say it like that? And people and persons by what? Sephardic Jewish, what? Swarti, Muslim, Moorish, right? Are these white people? Is a Muslim more a white person? Because he helped fund, colonize North America. We knew this. We already know this, but we don't really talk about it like that. We don't really, well, we want to just claim one thing. But there's a deep history here to embrace. Current genetic genealogical studies of the Appalachian descendants of these early colonists demonstrate that they carried the DNA haplotypes, male or female lineages, and genes from Sephardic, Ottoman, and North African founders. Further, these early North American colonists often bore straightforwardly Jewish and Muslim surnames. Attestants are Ali, Saracen, Moises, Bagsel, Hagara, Okostan, and even Saladin. Indeed, given the patently non-Christian backgrounds of so many settlers up and down the Atlantic coastline of the American colonies, it becomes difficult to ignore the significant declarations of religious tolerance inscribed in the U.S. Constitution. You understand what it's telling you right there? That freedom, pursuit of religious freedom, right? The right of religious freedom. What do you think that comes out of? Who was that benefiting? Mainly in colonial times. What is the American Revolution all about? Indentured servitude? You think it was about fighting, if two countries fighting each other? It wasn't about that. People weren't just signing up because they wanted to fight for their country and freedom. A lot of these people were indentured servants. That's how they paid their way over here, or that's how they got their land or freedom and stuff. That's how they got their land grant. In the Southeast, a lot of your families served in the military. Civil War, American Revolution, the War of 1812, French and Indian War, they got land for that. I found it in a lot of people's genealogy. They'll have land. We find the pattern. We're going back, we're going further each generation. So we see the pattern. All of a sudden, he has a land grant. And then all of a sudden, before that, what happens? He was a soldier. Civil War. And then so we see. And then all of a sudden, he was in the East Coast. So the story is he started in the East Coast, the family, right? Virginia, South Carolina, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, even Georgia, a little, Georgia, down in the eastern coast. And then they ended up moving over to where there was open land grants and all that in the southeast of the U.S. All right, so continue says here, even in particularly New York, founded by the Dutch as New Amsterdam. Who's the Dutch? Remember, who is the Dutch? Who was in Amsterdam? That was called New Jerusalem. Was heavily peopled by Sephardic Jews and Muslim Moors. All right, Muslim Moors. Where? New Amsterdam, New York, Muslim Moors. So who were the Shinnecock and all these tribes encountering Sephardic Jews and Muslim Moors? You got to put it all together. Put it all together. It's not one side is white, one side is black. It's not like that. It's not like that. Again, because these are Sephardic Jews and Muslims, Moors, who what? And we know it was Huguenots too, Protestants going over to so-called New Amsterdam, New York. The presence of persons from these ethnic affiliations on the governing boards of the Dutch West and East India companies is no accident. Dutch West India, yeah, people of color. Yeah, black people in the Dutch West and East India Company, so-called black people, yes. They included Jonathan Cohen, and Cornelius Spillman, another classic Jewish name. Other New Amsterdam and later New York residents were Jacob Abrahamson and Dennis Eikenson. We present contemporaneous testimony suggesting that even the leading Knickerbocker families of the New York colony, the Van Cortlands, the Litzes, Van Rensselaers, Delanos, the Lanceys, were Sephardic ancestry. You understand what that's telling you? Do I have to go back to the beginning of this video? Who were the Sephardic Jews? People of color, Swarti. It was a general consensus, right? The Spaniards and Portuguese were very dark-skinned. very dark skinned. Remember the beginning of this video? This fresh look at colonial American genealogy is a fresh look. All right, you gotta have a fresh look now. Break the spell. Forget about that white and black thing. Crayon colors. The fresh look at colonial American genealogies and settlers list presents for the first time in the source the Spanish, Hebrew, Arabic, and Jewish origins and meaning of more than 5,000 surnames. The vast majority of them widely assumed before to be sturdy British family names of ancient Baron. All right, all this time they told people these were British families. Guess what? They were cryptos, anglicized. Many of our name etymologies plainly contradict the standard reference works. The decipherment of surname history is an involved subject, all right? How did they do it, man? They did a lot of research. They deciphered, they traced the family surname, they traced it back. They traced it back. It was a hard undertaking, one that can extend over centuries of transformation in several countries and require knowledge of multitude of languages, not just languages, but of history. You gotta have a real historic background if you're never gonna understand if you think all Europeans are white and you think all Indians look like Siberians. I mean, you know, it's extremes in both ways. We go to extremes always. Why do we always go to extremes? And why do we generalize so much? For instance, in order to understand the sea change suffered by the ancient Jewish name Phoebus to English Phillips, and Scottish Forbes to Frobisner, with stages along the way of Farabas and Farabi and Furby, you see how it transforms? It becomes from Farabas all the way to Furby eventually. And then you forget your descent from a Muslim Moor. A lot of so-called what? I'm going to say it right now. I hope a lot of people don't get offended. A lot of so-called white people descend from people of color. They don't even know it. They descend from people of color. They think these are people, they're doing the genealogy, and they think they're linking themselves to people that are white in these genealogy. And I know for a fact a lot of those were people of color because I'm doing the same genealogy and I trace back to them and I look at the history. They're telling me they're Huguenots, they're telling me they're Sephardic Jews, all that. All that. All right? I'm telling you, it's like that. Crazy like that. In this genealogical game. Yeah. One must have appreciation for the synthesizing religions of the Roman Empire, including the cults of Mithras and naming practice of Greek-speaking congregation of Jews, as well as conversion of Berber populations to Judaism, conquest of Spain by Berber armies in 710, and subsequent development of Judeo-Arab culture, Judeo-Arab culture. Judeo-Arab culture. They were together. Not to mention the medieval French, the Norman invasion, the Normans and the French, the Flemish people, all people of color. Anglo-Saxons, the Saxons. There was two Saxon tribes, the Saxons, that meant black. The Saxons were black. The Scottish linguistic, orthographic, and social filters, the surname, passed through until it became enshrined in modern times as good old English Philip. Oh, I am a Phillips, mate, from the long line of the Phillips family. He doesn't know he was Farabas. Phoebus. In the Dictionary of English Surnames, P.H. Reinian, R.M. Wilson derive all variations from the Greek name Philippus. Its true etymology, at least for Jews who adopted the name, was established, like many others, by the Victorian scholar Joseph Jacobs, who made so many far-reaching contributions to Jewish historical studies that he may be said to have redefined the field. The monumental Dictionary of Sephardic Surnames by Guilherme Pagumbon, Paulo Valadares, and Ana Rosa Campagnano, another indispensable guide much relied upon by us in our investigations, has detailed entries under Phoebos, Farabas, and even Phillips. To those in the know, Phillips was a transparently Jewish surname, a venerable one at that, right? A venerable one at that. So don't neglect this part of your family. That was a very venerable name. Okay? The question is often asked why Jews change their names so much. Let us answer that in the words of Leon Harris, originally Hirsch. Harris Hirsch, the author of History of American Jewish Families, who built great department store chains like Gimbel's, Neiman Marcus, and Sears. Listen to this. He begins by acknowledging that Jews who altered their surnames from Nussbaum to Norman and Rabinovich to Robinson have often been made the butt of jokes and have been characterized as betrayers of their heritage and tradition. All right, they were what in crypto? They were in hiding. Crypto Jews. That's what it means. Secret Jews. Crypto means they were hiding. They anglicized some of their names. Now remember, it is possible that all these leading, what you call department stores, were started by people of color. Why not? We already know about Tulsa, right? We know about these so-called Black Wall Streets, right? Why not in colonial times? You know, like why not? Why not? But in fact, Harris writes because for centuries they only had single names, and only in the past 200 years were they forced to adopt definite family names for military conscription and tax collection purposes. They did not take seriously these names that they had assumed under duress. Many indeed have no more thought to choose any surname than a man might today if required to select his social security number. If that was the case for people of open Jewish descent, we can well imagine the ease with which persecuted Jews seeking to disguise their origins adopted serviceable and neutral sounding new surnames or accommodated Hebrew names like Naphtali to Hirsch, German for stag, and then to Harris. Two issues arise from these new perspectives. First, how did refugee Jews and Muslims gain awareness of and access to the British colonization efforts in North America? To answer this, we chronicle the significant efforts by English, Scottish, and Irish Freemasons in recruiting and protecting the identities of these non-Christian settlers. So what? Hold up. Man. Freemasons, all right? So they had connections with Freemasons that were helping them keep their identity on the low, protecting their identities of these non-Christian settlers. They weren't really Christians. We thought they were Christians. Leaders in Freemasonry attempted to create a safe haven for multi-ethnic peoples, regardless of religious creed, multi-ethnic people, not just so-called white people, not just Christian Britons, much as they commit themselves today to charitable and non-sectarian international causes. All right, you hear this? The second perplexing issue is given an overweening Sephardic Jewish and Muslim presence in the American colonies prior to 1776. Why that version of history was not the narrative promulgated to generations of Americans in their textbooks and public records? You know, good question. Why wasn't this really taught to us? Our present study does not purport the answer to this riddle. Some of it has to do with the declining fortunes of Ottoman civilization during these formative years of national identity, along with shifting definition of what constituted Jewry, Judaism, and Jewishness. Certainly, we can speculate that with the passage of the National Racial Exclusion Act 1790, which targeted not only persons of African indigenous descent, all right, indigenous, what African, but also those who were Jews, Saracens, Turks, Egyptians, and other pagans and infidel races. American families whose ancestors included persons from these now non-grata groups decided to quietly cover up their origins, declaring themselves from that point forward to be, publicly at least, ordinary British Christian folk. Hey, I'm from England, all right? I'm just Irish, I'm just English, all right? Just leave it at that, all right? This choice represents not only a tragic loss of identity, it's a tragic loss of identity and culture, okay? For the individual families involved, for your families who are involved in this. Listen, effectively negating their own history, negating your own history. Are you doing that? Think about it. But it also serves to falsify the true nature of American colonial experience, a lamentable legacy for all generations who came after, including our own. Dub, yeah, you already know, Dub. Introduction of the book. I think we're gonna keep going. Yeah, I think we're gonna keep going. America is frequently portrayed. Hold on, let me see if I can a little. I look better right there. Okay. Here we go. Thanks for tuning in, everybody that's in here. If you just joined us, we're just going over this information. This very good book, genealogical historical book, actually very good. It has a lot of good sources. You can verify the sources. All right. Again, it told us where they're getting their sources in the beginning when we started reading. All right. Yeah. Shout out to again the YouTube audio library for the beats. Yeah. Oh yeah. It's like an 80s beat, right? I get a feeling sometimes that makes me wonder why you trying to take me under? Why you trying to take me under? I get the feeling sometimes that make me wonder why you trying to take me under? I get that feeling sometimes, So it says here, America is frequently portrayed as daughter of Mother England. Its social history is approached as a study in similarities and contrasts. It is interesting then to take a look at genealogy, that handmaiden of history, and compare the goals and varieties of ancestry tracing into two countries. Not surprisingly, there are many shared characteristics as well as distinct differences. In the British Isles, hardly any pedigree can be documented farther back than about the middle of the 12th century. Few American genealogies extend beyond the Mayflower or Jamestown. Each time period was a determining moment in the future of the nation. The proudest boast of Englishmen has always been to claim descent from those who came with the conqueror, which, as L.G. Pine points out, is a strange national trait to be part of one's conquerors. A similar tendency can be seen in America, where people perversely trace their roots back to some unpleasant religious extremist, Indian fighter, or scapegrace, younger son of aristocratic lineage. American genealogies rarely jumped at the Atlantic and Norman pedigrees. There seems always to be a disconnect between the invasion of 1066 and a sudden appearance of the family's supposed ancestor on, say, the pipe rolls from the reign of Henry II or Magna Carta of 1215. In America, we sometimes have the ship's passengers list mentioning our ancestors, but then a maddening interval of silence before a reliable nexus of birth, marriage, and death records can be established. Oral tradition fills in the branch. In the case of the Normans and of America, which is founding fathers and less frequently evoked founding mothers, we are dealing with a small set of foreigners who came from across the sea, quickly gained control and entirely displaced the native population. All right, quickly gained control and entirely displaced the native population. It has been said that 3/4 of the families inhabiting Old South can trace descent from a few as 14 individuals or just as many surnames who came to the Jamestown colony. Gates, Hurd, Sands, Throckmorton, Walker, Wooten, and others. On a different level, an interlocking presidential dynasty has been suggested with 12 patrician families at its core: Adams, Bayard, Beckridge, Harrison, Kennedy, Lee, Livingston, Lodge, Randolph, Roosevelt, Taft, and Tucker, most of which we will have resource to mention in the chapters of this book. They actually let you know who these families really are. Between the Battle of Hastings, in which the English King Harold II fell. All right, so I guess it's giving us a lot of history right here. Let's see if we can get to a part, where we can get closer to home here. It says here, despite the small nucleus and founder effect, both the Normans and American colonists were extremely diversified in their rank and file. The former includes Danes, Vikings, Norwegians, Flemings, Picards, Bretons, Frenchmen, many from Toulouse and Aquitaine. In the south, in the region called Languedoc, all right, Languedoc, a lot of Huguenots, a lot of Moors in France there, in that part of France, and a number of Spanish or French, Jews, and Muslims. The last mentioned typically operated the armories, mints, construction industries, while supplying most mercantile professions with a strong component, as well as all banking personnel and civil servants because of their literacy and fluency in accounting. So you see, they're letting us know that the Jews and the Muslims were the ones who held all these positions mostly, not the other people. They were running things. The Norman capital of Rouen possessed one of the largest Jewish communities in Europe, who's the Normans. I'm trying to let you know, ranking alongside Toulouse, Rome, Const- Constantinople, and such Spanish cities as Toledo and Cadiz. A lot of these are Moorish cities too. The institution of the eskelker, originally chessboard or abacus, star chamber, based on the concept of star, Arabic for node, sheriffs, marshals, and other civil titles came from Mozarabic Spain. All right, where do we get all this stuff? Police, this police state. Where do we get all this civil police stuff? Titles, sheriffs, marshals, and other civil titles came from Mozarabic Spain or the south of France, and were not outgrowths of the original machinery of Norse, Norman, Anglo-Saxon, or Frankish states. That wasn't something so-called white people brought. You get what they're telling you? In an identical fashion, the immigrants who trickled and then steamed into the colonies comprehend Scotsmen, Irishmen, Welsh, Channel Islanders, Borders, Scots, French, Dutch, Flemish, Germans, Poles, Swedes, Swiss, and Cornishmen, as well as people from London and the English Heptarchy, Kent, Essex, and West Country, the Midlands, Sussex, Northumbria, and Yorkshire. Both movements had a transnational character. Although the Normans thought of themselves as Frenchmen, they had not resided long enough in Normandy to become amalgamated with the local population and were still pagan Norsemen at heart. The largest emigration of all occurred with the so-called Huguenots, so-called Huguenots. Why are you saying it like that, huh? Why they calling them so-called Huguenots? We already know, right? Muslim Moors, Sephardic Jews, Muslim Moors became Huguenots, who, as we shall see, were in many cases second or third generation Spanish and Portuguese Jews. Huguenots who were what? Spanish and Portuguese Jews who traded their French colors for English, Flemish, or some other nationality as they fled religious persecution. Chameleons. Huguenots. Huguenots, my fault. Don't get all offended. I'm sorry. Huguenot. The first president of Nigeria, Nnamdi Isikiwe, once remarked America as a country built more on people than on territory. He saw Jews as the ingredient that gave Americans their characteristic distinctiveness and diversity, saying they will come from everywhere, from France, from Russia, from America, from Yemen. Their faith is their passport. Jews and Muslims form, in a sense, the inner sanctum of both the Norman invasion. All right, listen to that. Who's the Normans? Listen to this, very important. A lot of you trace to Norman surnames or families. They were actually Jews and Muslims still, too. And occupation of British North America 600 years later. 600 years later, these same Normans, what? Between the two turning points were long centuries of Crypto-Judaism and Crypto-Islam. A lot of these Normans were what? Crypto-Islamic people. Right? That's deep. You gotta understand history correctly and get rid of these tags they put on Norman, Huguenot, Russian, French, Flemish, right? These are tags. These people have a real background in history. You just gotta go individually, right? So cryptoism, phenomena that are more apparent and better understood in genealogy than history, is better understood in genealogy because history is told wrong. So it doesn't make sense when you look at it historically, right? How they told us these people are. But when you do the genealogy, it makes more sense. What are some of the differences? The earlier influx of foreigners created a closely knit landed aristocracy based on the feudal system of warrior castes, while the later event left a more democratic or truth to tell oligarchic hegemony in place, one based on commercial and egalitarian values rather than a hierarchical religious or military code. It was a modern, expanding scientific worldview that prevailed in America. All right, so bear with me with the reading. Guys, I know most of you probably used to it by now. Not always easy. I'm getting a lot better as I go over the years. A wa, not a medieval great chain of being focused on one's parish and the surrounding countryside. Another major difference was that the Norman invasion was over and done with in a few years, whereas the colonies were settled in intermittent waves of shifting and changeable nature and was not concluded until the official closing of the western frontier in 1890. Thus, American genealogy divides by state, and we speak of Massachusetts genealogies, Virginia, Carolina, and so forth. So that was a very good point. That it's not, we can't again generalize saying everybody came here was the same, because specific people with specific cultural backgrounds went to Massachusetts at some point. Then some others with specific cultural background went to South Carolina, others went to Virginia, you know. So you got this, you a lot of people trace back to specific people and specific places in colonial times. You know, it was different in each state a lot, especially in colonial times. Maybe not so right now, but back then it was. It says the marked variety of colonial lifeways of those who formed the vanguard and subsequent body of settlers is reflected in the design of our book, which proceeds from Virginia, first and not so English colony, to Georgia, the last colony. All right. Although our purview stops at 1776 and hardly ever goes beyond the fall line of rivers emptying into the Atlantic, the character of each colony can be followed in the latitudinal movement of its inhabitants into the vacated lands of the Ohio and Mississippi rivers. America was settled from east to west. All right, it was settled from east to west, like I was trying to tell you earlier. The migration patterns, the post-colonial demographics of Kentucky and Tennessee reflected those of Virginia, Maryland, and North Carolina. All right, big one right there. Most of the people that came out of Kentucky and Tennessee end up going back to Virginia, Maryland, and North Carolina is what they're letting you know. All right, and you guys will do that. Your genealogy, you'll be able to see that if you can get that far back. In addition to Jewish genealogies, we have made an effort to bring to life some of the forgotten women who shaped the colonial American experience. These include the ancient Ur, mother of European royalty, the Occitan Jewish queen Ita, Charlemagne's great-great-grandmother, Mary Lago, the Sephardic Jewish mother of the Quakers, and the Lago family and the Lago estate, I believe, in Florida, has something to do with the Trump mansion he has there in Florida. Look into that. That's a Sephardic, so-called Moorish architecture. It was owned by Lago and her family, I believe, at one point. Is the story. Shout out to Lotus for the drop. Lotus, you already know. Mary Lago, the Sephardic Jewish mother of the Quakers, founded George Fox and Malaya Cooper, the Jewish mulatto of Daniel Boone's guy, Daniel Boone, whose Hebrew name is the same as one of the President Barack Obama's daughters. Some of their stories will surprise readers. Running counter to traditional historical accounts, few people realize that one of the Salem witches mounted a legal defense using the family's professional connections and wealth. Sarah Town, or Towney, Boys, or Clays, fought her accusers and lived to become a founder of the town of Framingham, Massachusetts, using her what? Sephardic connections, of course, Muslim connections. The mother of Patrick Henry, according to diarist William Byrd, was a handsome woman of the family of Esau, Hebrew, right? Whose first husband in Aberdeen, Scotland, was of the family of Saracens. Saracens. The Cherokee beloved woman Nancy Ward bore an Arabic name. Cherokee woman who had an Arabic name. Pay attention to that. One of the sub-themes of the present study in the interaction between immigrants and American Indians. Readers will find Cherokee, Creek, Choctaw, and other genealogies that reflect what? Intermarriage between Jews or Muslims and American native inhabitants. Belief in the thinking of the day of the children, Abraham's children coming together, Jews and Muslims from Europe coming and amalgamating, marrying, assimilating, getting together with America's native inhabitants, who a lot of the Cherokee, Creek, and Choctaw, the five civilized tribes. And I want to ask you, son, think about this. So, what made the five civilized tribes civilized? In whose eyes did they become civilized? It's because they took on European ways or we became Christianized, right? So-called Christianized, because in reality, they weren't even Christians. They were crypto, new Christians. They were Jews and Muslims, people of color. So how much blood content is either way? Does it matter? No, right? Well, maybe it does or maybe it doesn't, but you don't know. So let's not judge other people if you don't know your own genealogy. If you don't know your own, how much European could you be? How much Indian could you be? There's only one way to find out and prove it. Because words, you can say many things. You can say, well, I'm more Indian than you because I look this way, or because I'm the ancient one. But you might have a lot of this Jews and Muslims, Black Irish, Black Pans, the Picts, German Palatines, Huguenots in your ancestry. I'm just saying. In America, unlike Britain, it's not true that only the eminent have anything like a genealogy. Genealogy in this country is the second most popular hobby after gardening. That's so funny because it's become kind of like my two hobbies, other than doing my historical research and doing my video production, which I do like a lot. I enjoy my gardening and I enjoy doing genealogy. I didn't know that's one of America's two main hobbies. Genealogy, okay, it says, we are sure that it stands to reason that every individual, no matter how elusive or obscure, left some evidence of their existence in public records, all right? It's there. They didn't all burn down. It's not a conspiracy, somebody trying to hide something always. You guys got to break that spell too. That's a lie. A lot of times that's a lie. The records are there. They're just algorithms that are blocking you. They don't want you to know who your ancestor. They want you to still think you're going to trace back to an African slave. You're not supposed to find rich people found in towns who were people of color, had farms, had their own indentured servants slash slaves. It's not supposed to be real history. That's why he said earlier that it makes more sense when you do your genealogy and not when you look at it in historic view, because the whole historic narrative is false. And I'm glad a lot of you, getting this information, understanding, it makes it all worth it. Again, you have two major genealogies here. You got to embrace all your lines, all right? I'm not talking to individual people case by case here, so don't get all personal when I'm saying these things like, no, my family, my grandma told me this, my grandma, okay, bless your grandma, love your grandma, rest in power. But you have so many, so many. I just want to go real quick. Let me see if we can take a little a genealogical chart here, real quick. I'm gonna do new share. Hope you guys enjoying this. We're not gonna be here too long, Try to see how much more we're gonna read. We're gonna read this book entirely. We're gonna try to break it down, what it's saying. All right, right here, what is it saying? Salvador Fernandez Sarco. All right, remember that name. All right. Genealogical chart, grandparents number. Let's see what comes up. I want to show you guys genealogical chart. Okay, here we go. Hopefully we get some good charts. All right. So this is the good one right here. All right. So we already know that each generation you multiply, right? So your parents would be 2, right? Your grandparents 4. Your great grandparents 8. You have 8 of them. So when you're telling me your grandma, what grandma? Which one? Then you got your second great grandparents. Now you got 16. So again, which one? Then you got your third great grandparents. So that's not even third generation. That's like, let me see, 1 generation, 2 generation, 3 4th generation by the time you're here, and second great grandparents. So it doesn't go together, the generations, when you're saying second. But just know that what I'm trying to say. Hopefully you guys understood what I just said. So third great grandparents, you got 32, and so on. It doubles. By the time you get to your 8th great grandparents, you have 1,024. By the time you get to the 9th great grandparents, you have 2,000. By the time you get to your 10th great grandparents, you have 4,000 grandparents. By the time you get to your 11th great grandparents, you have 8,192. So are you telling me, because a lot of these 11th or 10th grade grandparents are still in the US. We're not in Europe. A lot of this is still here in the colonial times. So are you telling me that out of all this 8,192, they're all Indians? None of them are Sephardic Jews, Muslims, knowing, all these black, Irish, and Scottish. None of them. None of them are. Just you got 8,192 ancestors who are Indians. Because that's what people be telling me. They're 100% Indian. That's what they tell me. They go on their live channels on YouTube and they say they're 100% Indian, and they get mad at me for saying, I don't think you're 100% Indian. Man, let's at least say 99%. All right, but yeah, I don't even think 99. So again, you got two major genealogies. You guys will see as you do your individual genealogy. All right, so again, it keeps doubling. So again, you don't just got one grandma or two or three. You got a lot of grandparents. You got a lot of lines, a lot of heritage, a lot of culture and history behind you. All right, a lot of history behind you. Not one-sided. In America, remember, the Jews and Muslims, they were intermarrying with Abraham's children. All right. In America, unlike Britain, it is not true that only the eminent have anything like a genealogy. All right, so we already read this. Sorry about that. So we are assured and stands to reason that every individual, no matter how elusive, there is a record, right? That's what we were. There is some kind of public record, even if they don't have birth certificates past a certain time. There's still Baptist church records that record when you were born and died. They still recorded that. You can still find these. You can still find these things, marriage records. You can still find these land grants, things like that. They're still there. And when it becomes to a certain point past the 1830s, it becomes historic. It becomes very historic, where the information actually gets very accurate. But the problem is, we always thought these were so-called white people. That's the problem. And sometimes even in the genealogical website, they throw in a white person, a white picture. And guess what? The person had died before the camera was invented. So they'll throw a picture up there, a random picture of somebody. It's not even the person, right? Or they'll do a drawing of a white person, what they want us to think of an American Revolution soldier to look like. But we know, right? We know because we got already, my video, right? You guys, let me just go back, just real quick. All right, you guys are not gonna forget, right? Colonial Soldiers of Virginia, the American Revolution, that book I had. What did it tell us? It told us that the majority of people that were in the American Revolution in Virginia were people of color. People of color. All right. The plot thickens. Let's go back. More and more, the genealogies compiled and published forsake the manufactured lives of great men to include maternal connections, ordinary folk, and minorities. With the emerging tools of the internet, it is possible to be both thorough and accurate and produce detailed genealogies motivated by a desire for gathering facts. A desire to gather facts, not just to be one thing. Because if you go into genealogy just so you can prove you're one thing, maybe you're not doing genealogy for what it's really meant to for. Because you're just trying to prove one thing. But if you're motivated by the desire for gathering facts, for telling the truth, and for redressing some of the injustices of traditional Orthodox accounts, that's the real reason you should do it. The footnotes in this study are intended not only to document origins and surname histories in unequivocal fashion, but also to cast a sidelight on celebrated Jewish Americans who can trace back to colonial forebears and their relatives in European Jewry. These range from the Massachusetts Kennedys to the Birds of Virginia, from actors Johnny Depp and Adrian Brody to actors Roseanne Barr and Gwyneth Paltrow, from writers Louis Gluck and Neil Simon to politicians Barbara Boxer and Bernie Sanders, and jurors Stephen Breyer and Allegra Kagan, as biased and purpose-made genealogists. Receding to the background, privileged historians' thesis with vested interests must also be on the defensive. We hope that the remarkable stories of the men, women, and families in this work will serve as a reminder of America's early diversity and stimulus for rewriting some of the inaccurate and injudicious portions in the proud chronicle of her birth and formative years. All right, so I think that was the introduction. We go into chapter 1. Map makers, privateers, and promoters. Right, we're gonna get a little bit about this. I was planning to stop, but we're gonna get a little bit of this chapter because it looks very interesting. Again, chapter 1: map makers, privateers, and promoters. The year 1492 saw one door closed on Iberian Jews and Muslims, and another open an ocean away. Hey guys, there's a whole land over there that's meant for us. It's promised to us. It's prophecy. Remember, Columbus was on a mission to find the holy city and recover Mount Zion, promised land. That year witnessed three events in Spain that had sweeping implications for the colonization of the New World. The first was the fall of Muslim Granada to the Christian Reconquista. Islamic rule in the Iberian Peninsula came to an abrupt end after nearly 800 years. 800 years. Are you saying they didn't multiply? You didn't multiply in 800 years? Where did all these Muslims go? In Spain, people of color, where did they go? You know, Islamic rule. Second, a royal edict of expulsion was issued aimed at Spain's Jewish population. It gave them 3 months. You got 3 months to get out of here. Later extended to 6 to convert. All right, to convert to Christianity or leave. Yeah, the realm, their property confiscated. Third was the voyage of Christopher Colon in search of a transatlantic passage to China and the Indies. Yeah, right. We know the fake story. On periphery of these events, the same year brought such developments as the death of the founder of the first modern state, Lorenzo the Magnificent, Grand Duke of Tuscany, invasion of Italy by the French King Charles VIII, with the consequence that Renaissance began to spread northward, secularization and decline of the papacy with the ascension of the infamous Borgia Pope Alexander VI. All right, the Borgias, the first mafias, right? The Borgias. Who's Cesare Borgia? You guys know who Cesare Borgia is? Who's Cesare Borgia? All right, who they paint Sus as? Sus. Hey, Sus. It was Cesare Borgia, the Pope's grandson, Cesare Borgia. That's the face you're praying to. That's the Jesus you're praying to. All these occurrences made for a defining. Okay, so it says, and construction of German man-maker Martin Bayham of the first globe. All these occurrences made for a defining moment in European history. It was a turning point that spelled the death throes of the catastrophic Christian Middle Ages and harbinger of the birth of the modern era. Expansive horizons now beckoned to all people. Secular forms of government were emerging. New currents of pluralism were afoot. Whether Jews helped cause this groundswell of change or represented merely one contributory factor, they certainly participated in the course of events and benefited from the promising new opportunities. They were at the forefront of discovery, exploration, and settlement of the new lands in the West. All right, we already got this. We got this in the whole nations of the world videos, right? Who was colonizing? Who was also being brought over here as servants? We already got my two, right, Bound for America videos, Indenture Servitude, who was really being brought over here. Right, there's a real story. Both academic studies and informal family histories attest that many of the Spanish and Portuguese colonists in Central America and South America, Mexico, and the Caribbean were conversos and Moriscos. And I, for one, have no shame to telling you right now that's hearing me, because I know I've been finding it in a lot of people's genealogy, and I know the true history of most so-called African Americans, that I can attest that I have run into these Portuguese Moriscos and conversos in my ancestry, blending in and marrying into the royal Indian families, indigenous families that were here. That's how they got the land. That's how they made themselves worthy over here, by marrying and taking the daughters or the wives of the chiefs. Shout out to rest in power my ancestor King Garavito, and my other ancestors too, the Sephardic Moorish Jews that came. And you know, a lot of this is in your blood. You gotta, you know, whether you want to accept it or not, you like to point fingers. You know, we grew up with people telling you were a foreigner, you were a foreigner. All right. But you know, when I do my genealogy, I know what I'm finding more of. You know, you get what I'm saying? So when I do my genealogy, I know what I'm finding more of. So I know who I am. And even though I know I got Morisco and Converso in me, it's all good. That's just how wow I wanted it to be. That's what made me me right now. Although they might appear to be good Catholic Christians, on the surface, they were in reality crypto Jews and crypto Muslims. Yes, crypto Muslims. Yes, secret Jews and secret Muslims. They practice the traditions of Judaism. Who are they talking about? The Spanish and Portuguese colonists in Central and South America, Mexico, and the Caribbean. They were secret Jews, secret Muslims. All right, break the spell. These were the conquistadors that you were saying the white man came and got us. No, these were same people. More on more war. They practiced the traditions of Judaism and Islam in the privacy of their own homes, sometimes in small de facto communities or intermarried family groups. Both Judaic and Islamic law excuse this behavior on grounds that such temporizers were constrained to submit to political pressures to save life and property. The earliest martyrs to the commandment of the Torah requiring Jews to declare themselves as separate and set apart from other people were called aneuism, forced ones. The Inquisition rolled out a dragnet complete with tip sheets, rewards, and public spectacles, and feared out to the fest Judaizers as well as Moriscos were burned at the stake as heretics. Spain's Muslim population survived longer than its Jews, but the final wave of extraction for them came in 1614. Sorry, Muslims, you had to leave by 1614. Where did they go? Who are they today? They left in droves for safe havens in the lowlands of England and Ottoman Empire. The grisly machinery of the Holy Office was not shut down for good until 1822. The Spanish government did not permit Jews to return officially or become citizens until the Franco regime in the 1940s and 1950s. Proscription of the Jewish practices and beliefs had never been perfect. Rules were relaxed from time to time and from place to place. King Manuel of Portugal welcomed thousands of Jewish exiles across the border and tolerated openly Jewish subjects in his realm until 1497. King Manuel, but then what happened in 1497? Navarre was long an exception to the persecution of Jews. Local enforcement of anti-Semitic laws across Spain and Portugal was shifting and uneven. Officials often concluded in protecting persons of Jewish and Muslim ancestry who were important to the smooth function of the state. In truth, the three cardinal events mentioned above are interwoven. For historians have identified 5 Jews among the 90 sailors in Columbus' expedition. All of them were probably intent not only on finding the riches of the East Indies, but also on escaping religious persecution at home. The man we know as Columbus was in all likelihood of Jewish ancestry. All likelihood. Yeah, we know, Mr. Sarko. He is believed to have been a descendant of Spanish Jews. All right. No, not Cologne. We believe Sarko Portuguese Jews who had converted and moved to Genoa following the massacre of the 1391. But the Cologne people letting you know the drop that the Colognes are even, they're Jewish anyways. They're Sephardic Jews anyways. The prominent historian Salvador de Madariaga wrote an authoritative biography in which he came to this conclusion, and Nazi hunter Simon Weissenfeld's book Sails of Hope popularized the idea. Among other clues, Weissenfeld drew attention to Columbus' use of Hebrew ciphers and his private correspondence with his son Diego. In a letter to Diego de Deza, the tutor Prince Juan, moreover, Columbus wrote, "I am a servant of the same Lord who raised up David." A curious allusion, according to Wiesenthal. Historians speculate that the first European to sight land on October 12, 1492 was also Jewish. The sailor Juan Rodriguez Bermejo, all right, Bermejo means red. The Bermejo Sea was the Gulf of California, which is the Red Sea, right? Bermejo Sea, Red Sea. Called Rodrigo de Triana, left Spain upon Columbus' return and entered the service of the Moors in Morocco. Moors in Morocco. His name and memory are honored today by American Jews for whom the story of the auspicious beginnings is a point of immense pride. Hundreds of Jews exiled from Spain and Portugal followed Bermejo and made a name for themselves as the Jewish pirates of the Caribbean. Okay, the Jewish pirates of the Caribbean. All right, Jewish pirates of the Caribbean, as author Edward Chrysler calls them, including Moroccan-born Samuel Palachi, a pirate rabbi. Samuel Palachi, famous pirate. Again, people of color, so-called black people, so-called black pirates, straight up, black pirates, straight up. The focal point of the present work, however, is not the southern or central portions of the Americas, not the Spanish and Portuguese colonies in the Americas. A case will be made here for crypto-Jewish and crypto-Muslim presence in British North America. So they was just letting us know, the drop in colonial Spanish America, but they want to focus on British North America, okay? I'm sure that's what you guys want to know about, right, too, a little bit. We propose that many of the initial colonists in Virginia, listen to this, all right, music, DJ, music, all right, uh, get ready, ready? We propose that many of the initial colonists in Virginia, South Carolina, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, and Maryland were of Jewish and Moorish descent. The colonist, what white man? What you talking about, the white man? My ancestors told me the white man came. What white man? What you talking about, white man? Prove me he was a white man. If not Jewish and Moorish self-identification or public labeling as such. Appendix A present an abundance of source material concerning Jewish surnames. All right, do the history, do the research. The question of any given individual's religious adherence can be bracketed for the time being. At any rate, each claim about religion has to be answered on a case-by-case basis, and very little research has been completed on the varieties of the Jewish religious experience in colonial America. Appendix B, rituals and practices of the secret Jews. And Appendix C, Muslim rituals and beliefs, contain a mixture of religious traditions and social customs. What is central to our inquiry is ancestry. We suggest Dutch New Amsterdam, later British New York and New Jersey, harbored and sometimes welcomed people of Jewish ancestral origins and affinities. And the Lenape people know, they have this in their ancestry. They know what I'm talking about. Although the historical backdrop to these developments may be familiar, some salient events are worth repeating, beginning with pogroms in Barcelona in 1391 and increasingly a century later when Inquisition tribunals were established throughout Spain. Sephardic Jews made their way by the thousands to France, all right? They made their way to France, the Netherlands, Switzerland, Germany, Austria, and Britain, all right? And they became known as those people. So they became known as French, Dutch, Swiss, Germans, Austrians, Britons, or English people. But a lot of them were what? Moorish Sephardic Jews. Once denounced or exposed in their homeland, Jews were not allowed to immigrate to Spanish possessions in the New World. Although many went there as new Christians or conversos, you had to convert or you had to call yourself a Christian. You had to be a crypto, you had to be in secret. Get it? Crypto. Beginning in 1492, the Muslims of Spain and Portugal were likewise forced to accept conversion to Christianity or flee their homes. Unlike their Jewish counterparts, they were not explicitly forbidden to immigrate to New Spain. Their influence in the Americas is largely unstudied and certainly unappreciated. I definitely agree with that. The death knell for them came in 1609 when several 100,000 Moriscos remaining in Spain and Portugal were declared undesirables. Remember what they were doing to all of Europe's undesirables? Whoever was claimed undesirable, remember what happened? They were sent to the plantations as indentured servants. They were sent as servants, indentured servants, undesirables to the plantations of America. And what happened? They became known as so-called Negroes, eventually Africans. Because why? They're Moriscos. What is a Morisco? It's a Muslim who converted to Christianity. But really, in reality, they were just secret Christians, or crypto crypto Muslims. Crypto Muslim, that's what a Morisco is. A crypto Muslim who is being sent to the and exiled into the plantations. Undesirable. They were labeling them undesirables. They left in droves for non-Catholic lands, many settling as merchants. Who's the merchants? Pay attention. Remember, we got this in my Nations of the World videos. We broke down who were the merchants. We already know this. Let's not go, backwards. We know, and it's correlating right here. Many of them became what? The merchants. And why am I emphasizing this? Because you're going to find a lot of merchants in your genealogy. And these merchants, you're going to see a lot of them have Hebrew names. Benjamin Walker, Isaac Walker, Judah, Jacob Walker, Levi Walker. And they happen to be merchants in South Carolina, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and all these other places. And guess what? Put two and two together when you're doing the genealogy. You're going to see these are people of color. It's not going to state so. It's not going to state it. Back in these old times, they didn't even have the color. They didn't deal with color back then. Before 1870s, they stopped doing that. 1870s, some of the census still have color. Some of the 1860s still have it, but most of them don't. They white it out, or they left that part blank. They want us to think they left it blank, but why would they print a census with that column if they're not going to use it? So I believe they were whiting out a lot of these census so you can think these are white people. My theory and opinion right there. Sometimes I do give opinions, right? So although the bulk of these refugees fled to North Africa and Ottoman Turkish lands, that's not proven. Thousands of others sought safety in France and Low Countries as Protestantism swept across Western Europe. Just like the same time, these Moriscos, Sephardic people, are going to England and other parts of Europe, France, the Low Countries. Protestantism is sweeping across Western Europe all of a sudden. Protestantism goes hand in hand when we're talking about Muslim Moors and Sephardic Jews. We know this, right? Many of these Jewish conversos and Moriscos became often only outwardly Protestant. Only outwardly. They declare themselves Protestants. That way they can get the Catholics off their backs. They were protesting though, protesting, Protestant, protesting the Catholics, swelling the ranks of the dissenters. Some even provided leaders for the Huguenots. Who? Let's go back. Moriscos. Moriscos. All right. Let's see if we can get this clear picture of this. All right. Let me see. Oh, not that one. Oh, here we go. Morisco. Let's type in Morisco. Come on, Google. What is a Morisco? Google. Let's go to Wikipedia. Very simple. Let's keep it very simple. Right? What is a Morisco? Morisco, Spanish for Moorish. Spanish for Moorish. Moorish were former Muslims and their descendants from the Roman Catholic Church as the Spanish crown commanded to convert to Christianity or compulsory exile after Spain outlawed the open practice of Islam by its sizable Muslim population. All right, Moorish, Spanish for Moorish, Morisco, Spanish for Moorish. Back. Moriscos became what? Protestants, who became what? Leaders of Huguenots, who became what? Hussites, who became Anabaptists, the Baptists, who became Calvinists, who became German Reformed, who became Walloons, Mennonites, Dunkers and Quakers, Puritans, Presbyterians, who? Moriscos, Moorish for Spanish Moorish, right? Morisco. Moorish, Muslims, became Quakers, Puritans, Presbyterians. I don't know how to repeat this. I want you guys to understand this. So that's the hijack when you're going into these ancestors and you're finding Quakers. But Kurimeo, I didn't know because they were Quakers, and well, what's wrong? What's wrong with being a Quaker? But some of these Quakers are what? Muslims of Spain and Portugal. Muslims, Moors, so-called black people. Yes, black. They want to keep saying this because I don't like dealing with crayon colors here. So-called black people. Yes. Huguenots, Hussites, Anabaptists, Quakers, Dunkers, all that. When the British, Dutch, and French began establishing colonies of the Atlantic seaboard, they sent colonists not subjects of high political and social rank from their respective countries, but for the most part recently arrived patently anti-Catholic, newly minted Protestants. You see who they were sending? Many were debtors, prisoners, or servants. Like I was saying earlier, what was going on with all these so-called black people? They were being sent as prisoners of war, servants, debtors, cast-offs of society who were struggling to get onto their own feet in a new country. All right. England's reliance on Iberian Jews to promote its interests abroad goes back as far as the Tudors. All right. So I think I'm gonna hold on. Let me go right here. Because yeah, now I'll keep reading. We're gonna read this whole book, guys. We're gonna definitely read this whole book. Unfortunately, I have to go for right now, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. The presentation so far. This was part one, basically, of this, because we're gonna go into this book more deeply. It's gonna help with genealogy. It's gonna help refresh everything. I think it's very important. A big part of history, of American history, that's being left out. This was not taught to you. Again, you gotta break the spell. These are not just white people. These are not just white people. All right. Now, what I'm gonna do, because let me see. Virginia's colonial soldiers. 1 second here. I'm looking for a sign for you guys here. 1 second.
It's not a game, it's a rich thing.
All right. So I just want to say nobody really owns information. You know, this is a public book. I share it for my Patreons. You know, I just make it easier for my Patreons, just have it as a PDF there. It's not because I'm trying to charge my Patreons or make people pay for it. But I just shared, if you check the chat, I just checked the book that we were reading. You can find it there on archive.org. I'm giving you guys that for, you know, just because you're here tuned in with me. I appreciate all of you. I hope you guys enjoy that. You know, if you want to go ahead of me and read it, because we're going to go over it again. This is like a book review, kind of like we're doing with this, you know, because there's a lot of pertinent info in this, and a lot of things we need to understand. I don't want to skip over things. I kind of like the way they're going with it chapter by chapter. So we're going to read it in order, you know, as we go. So again, I hope you guys enjoyed this first part. Just a quick reminder again. Just another reminder here, in case you don't know, I have we've done videos about, you know, passenger list of the Jacobite prisoners and stuff. This is one example if you've never seen one, of a ship, a manifest, a roll with the Jacobite prisoners coming from Europe. They were being sent to the Caribbean plantations as prisoners of war. As you can see here, remarks, it'll say brown, smooth fade, black, curled hair, black with curled hair, brown complexion, black, ruddy, brown, ditto, meaning ditto, swarty, ditto. So brown, ruddy, black, brown, black. And it tells you the person's name. John Johnson, like the husbandman from Lanarkshire. So it tells you what part of Bristol or England or Ireland they're coming, or Scotland. right? Just so you guys can see, black, very strong made. So it's not just Sephardic Jews, even though a lot of these are, of course, Sephardic or Hebrew people, not necessarily from Spain, but yeah, Hebrew people. But either way, even if they're not Hebrew people, a lot of these are the ancient indigenous people of this land, of that land, sorry, of Ireland, Scotland, and England, you know, that were there, the ancient clans and tribes, tribal people, chieftains that were there. And I thought this picture was very important because, again, you know, when we're talking about a more on more war, I know we're so used to seeing the Spaniards as the white people, just like they're depicted in this picture right here, in this drawing. But again, they would look just the same complexion as the Indians right here depicted, or even darker. You know, even the Indians might be darker or even lighter in different ways too. But I just want you to know you got to dodge the hijack because we're gonna see it everywhere. You know, they gave us a little bit of truth, but then they give us a little bit of hijack. Let's not fall into one side. Again, it's a more on more war. Again, these Spaniards, again, were Sephardic, Muslim, crypto Jews, crypto Muslims, people of color. They were black, so-called black Spaniards, black Portuguese. Okay. It says here, Jews in Muslim British Colonial. This was actually South Carolina Free People of Color video I did. South Carolina plays an important role when it comes to this history. Check out my Swarthy Europe video series, part 1, 2, and 3, just like that, Swarthy Europe. They're called Europe's Aboriginal Indigenous Inhabitants. Great drop on that. The Jewish Pirates of the Caribbean, right? Who's these Jewish Pirates of the Caribbean? So again, it says here, both academic studies and informal families' histories attest that many of the Spanish and Portuguese colonists were conversed with the Moriscos, right? Crypto, secret Jews, secret Muslims. What's the lesson of today? William Ellison, right? A black slave owner, William Ellison. We got the video right there. Make sure to catch that. I did this video as well. Story of William Ellison. Some people get mad because they say I copied them and I'm copying their videos. I didn't even know that person was making the same video or had made it. I don't even if I did make the same video of the same topic. I mean, are all my videos the same? Of all your topics, are all my videos the same? Did I steal all my topics from you? Like, you know, it's history. History is history. Again, nobody owns information. All right. Crypto Moran was Protestant Scots when Scotland was Jewish. Great book. Again, I did this video. We read basically from the whole book almost on that video. You know, we got the most important parts. Make sure to catch that video. Make sure to catch this video. The Dutch West India Company, Dutch Moorish Sephardic Atlantic Trade. This is part 4 of Nations of the World. Make sure you get that video, part 4, 5, and 6. Really good videos. And don't forget John Calvin. He was a crypto. John Calvin Cohen. All right, some Sephardi Jews from Spain. I found this picture, just colorized it. Some of them, how they look, mixed with, you know, with their Arab, Moorish ancestry too, and culture. All right, so let me just go to the beginning. Just want to beginning of this. I hope you guys enjoyed the presentation again. Hey, where's my images I had here? Well, let's just leave it at Charles. We'll leave it on Charles V. We'll leave it on Charles V. All right, let's see what we got here. So we can close out of here. You know, we're gonna jam while we close out of here. We're gonna jam the way out, on the way out. So I hope you guys enjoyed this presentation. We're gonna read this book in its entirely. I don't know if the other ones I'll do it, maybe pre-record it so I can add images while I'm reading, you know, make it more interesting so you guys can have something to see. But I hope you guys enjoyed it like this, me just reading. It's not easy just reading like this for long periods. It gets tiring, you know, so again, if you want to support this channel, the work I do, you know, if you want me to continue and grow, I have a Patreon page. Thank you, J9, for sharing the link. It's in the chat. J9 shared a little bit earlier. Just go to patreon.com/Kurimeo and you'll find me. I have a lot of great PDFs there. I share new things every month. I'm about to share a great magazine, either today or tomorrow, Ancient American Magazine, issue number 4. Very good one. That's a very good one that I'm about to share. Some more of the images I've colorized, the American images collection I got. I've shared them there too. All the originals I have, so you can just have them there. Again, I do this because my patrons go out of their way to try to support me. I want to give sign back. You know, I don't want to just feel like I'm just, you know. But I hope you guys enjoy these presentations, and you have a great rest of your evening, a great night. We're gonna continue reading from this book. Many blessings. All right, many blessings. You know, rewind. DJ, hit him up. DJ. Wow, love y'all. Pura vida, mi gente. Yeah, much love and respect to everybody tuned in. All the real ones. I see your names. Thank you. Thank you. I see everybody's name in the chat. I see you here. Trust me, I know who's here supporting. Thank you. I appreciate it. All the years of support. And even if you're new, thank you for coming through and taking the time to, you know, watch my videos, the presentations, you know. Because, you know, it's hard to sit down and actually try to listen to somebody, I know. But, you know, I hope you guys enjoy it. Yeah.